gentlemen, welcome to King's Cross St. Pancras. Found this really cool car, thought that was sick. Look at this really fine building, love. And then I went to the British Library, which was really cool. It's where one of the original copies of the Magna Carta is held. There were 12 of them made at the time of the signing, and only 4 exist today, and one of them's there, and then some fun little Shakespeare books. And then I found this really old secondhand bookstore where I found this really cool book. Look at it, there it is. The 50 most amazing crimes in the past 100 years, but the book was published in 1936. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I love it when the van's late.
Yeah, super fun.
Hey.
They pull up and they're like, oh, fuck, it's the Americans.
They might.
That's probably why they're late.
They're like, how long until they realize we're not coming?
Yeah. Let's see how long we can stretch this bit out.
Live. And then we went to Oxford. I totally wasn't bitter about the fact that they rejected me when I applied. Definitely didn't mention that a couple of times. We saw a couple of the original colleges. Each college, they said, is built in a quad, so they all have this little central area. And they all actually have a chapel in them, which is really cool.
It's giving Hogwarts.
Right here, this is a building where actually one of the Harry Potter movies was filmed in. It was the hospital wing, which I found really cool and also made our tour guide talk to me about for a while, so.
Thoroughly. So, because the books kept coming, a bit like Harry Potter really.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my favorite era of English history, the Tudor era. Okay. But Emily, what's the Tudor era? I'm so glad you asked. So, little history lesson. So, little history lesson for those of you who don't know who the Tudors are or what time era they're in, or for those of you who haven't seen the show called The Tudors, give it a watch. How historically accurate is it? I don't know. The Tudor era in England starts after the War of the Roses,
which is essentially when there's a power grab. One person's king, they don't want him to be king, he wants to stay king, families are fighting.
It ends with the murder of Richard III, and he is the one who sort of made his brother's kids, the princes in the tower, disappear, whether or not they died in the tower or something happened to them. They were in line because their dad was king, he dies. Rather than one of them succeeding, Richard takes over and sort of just makes those princes disappear. Richard III dies in battle. Henry VII, or who will become Henry VII, his army defeats Richard, and he takes the throne, and he marries Richard's niece, Elizabeth of York, who was the daughter of Elizabeth of York and Edward IV, who were Richard's brother and sister-in-law. Quick family tree. So that starts the Tudor era.
With Henry VII, he's a Tudor, he marries a York princess.
So Henry VII becomes king with Elizabeth. They have a son, and you guessed it, Arthur. Henry VII's first son's name was Arthur. You know what his second son's name was? Henry. Make it make sense. Henry becomes Henry VIII. Arthur marries Catherine of Aragon. He dies. Catherine of Aragon works her way into marrying Henry VIII, who was much younger than her. I say much, I think it was like 8 years. But for that time, wild concept. They're married for 24 years. Where are my 6 listeners at?
Was married 24 years.
Henry then meets Anne Boleyn.
I'm that Boleyn girl and I'm up next.
So then he divorces Catherine of Aragon. She is not happy about that. Catherine of Aragon, bye, she's gone. You know what Henry does? Breaks away England from the Roman Catholic Church. Now, he marries Anne Boleyn, they elope, it's scandalous, the Pope condemns him for it. He's like, you know what, I'm head of the church. I'm head of the Church of England. Because you can do that if you're a king. Anne Boleyn doesn't give him a son, he's super angry about it. Cuts her head off. She's executed at the Tower of London. He marries her lady-in-waiting, Jane Seymour. It's claimed that he actually loved her. They have a son, but Jane Seymour dies in childbirth. And the son is Edward V. Someone fact check me on that. He doesn't marry anyone for a while. Then he's like, ayo, Hans Holbein, tour London, paint all of them fine young ladies. So he does that. And he finds all of the European royalty and noble ladies, and he paints them. He gives them to Henry, and Henry goes, ooh, this one. Know who that was? Anne of Cleves, or Anna of Cleves. They get married. He gets angry at her because he was a romantic, and this is, I think, a funny story. So he puts on a costume. It's her first time being to England. He puts on a costume. He goes to her room and professes his love for her in costume, and she gets weirded out by it. Because to her, a strange man just entered her room and tried to kiss her. So she's like, oh, bye. He gets angry because he thought she should have been able to see through his disguise and fall in love with him. So then there's beef there. They get married. They get divorced. Divorced, beheaded, died, divorced. Enter Catherine Howard. She was 17 when they got married, and she was also very young when she got beheaded. So that happened. Then he marries Catherine Parr, and then he dies. And his body explodes in his coffin. Learned that recently. So that's Henry VIII. Bye. Emily, where does the comedy aspect come into it? I'm getting there. I just love the Tudor era. Henry VIII, he's dead. He died in a Protestant England. Then, Edward V, question mark. Edward takes the throne. He's not king for very long. He dies. Mary, or Bloody Mary, takes the throne, makes England Roman Catholic again because she's the daughter of Catherine of Aragon, who was a very devout Catholic. She starts killing people, Protestant religious leaders, and then she dies. She's not queen for very long. And then we get Elizabeth I, who is the daughter of Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII, and she is what many call Anne Boleyn's revenge. She never gets married, even though she had a couple of suitors, people that were interested, but she never gets married. She ends Henry VIII's line and ends the Tudor era as well. Hey Emily, your history project is on celebratory entertainment and comedy. You literally just told us the succession of the Queens of England and Henry VIII and his kids. Huh? Great observation, me in the corner. Why did I give you that history lesson other than I thought it was fun? Elizabeth I. So, the whole point of this project is celebratory performances or comedy in London. Now, who was the most famous playwright during the Tudor era? Shakespeare! This man, right here. You know him. Maybe you love him, maybe you hate him. Who knows? William Shakespeare, what a guy! Now, I also have a whole bunch of stuff about Shakespeare and his history. I went to Stratford-upon-Avon, so I've got clips of that, so you'll see that. Shakespeare? You're supposed to throw him. Oh my God. What I'm going to talk about, other than Shakespeare's performances and his plays, because those were a form of celebratory entertainment, I'm mainly going to talk about his comedies. He had 14 comedies, and many of them had very specific aspects of what Shakespeare thought was funny. As a program, we actually saw a couple of Shakespeare's comedies. We saw A Midsummer Night's Dream, Much Ado About Nothing at the Globe, which is a recreation of the original Shakespeare theater. And we saw Love's Labour's Lost in Stratford-upon-Avon. What did I notice about Shakespeare's comedies? There's a lot of mixed up information. In A Midsummer Night's Dream, and Love's Labour's Lost, there's a common trope of someone declaring their love and that somehow being switched or mixed up. In Midsummer Night's Dream, one of the suitors is cursed to like the other sister. So he's in love with one sister, and then he's sort of put under a spell and he likes this other sister, and sort of the world gets kind of thrown into chaos. In Love's Labour's Lost, they write letters declaring their love to their intended, and the letters get mixed up, which also causes chaos. So another common thing I noticed in Shakespeare's comedies is there's often a character of the fool or the clown, or a character that's not an ingenue. In the comedies I've seen, there's the theme of it sort of being what we would call a rom-com in today's age, where there's romance and it's funny. Wow, that's just literally a rom-com. Wow, Shakespeare, the original rom-com writer. You heard it here first. You definitely didn't. Outside of the characters
That are falling in love or maybe not falling in love or are trying to fall in love, yada yada yada, there's
a fool or a clown or a jester character that's sort of kind of just there and kind of having a blast. Maybe they're intentionally causing chaos. Maybe they're just a fool, right? They're just sort of bumbling around. Another common occurrence in Shakespeare's comedies is that they normally end in some form of marriage or reconciliation, where everyone's happy and it's a happy ending and all the couples got together and yay, woohoo, the chaos is resolved. Except for in Love's Labour's Lost, actually. None of the couples ended up together, all sort of ended up going their separate ways, and Shakespeare even comments on that. He has one of his characters say, wow, this isn't ending like a play. Something along those lines of, this isn't how a play normally ends. A technical aspect I found in Shakespeare's comedies was that, so at the time, women were not allowed to perform on stage. They were not allowed to be actresses. It was only men on stage. But they still wrote female characters and characters that presented as women. How do you navigate that as a playwright or as a director or even as an actor? So what they did was men would dress up as women and they would play those roles. He devised a way to get out of that where he had a mistaken identity trope. One example that comes to mind is in Twelfth Night, where a female character dresses like a man for the majority of the play. The male actor didn't have to, be corseted or wear a wig. For the majority of the play, that actor would be playing a woman playing a man. And one other thing that doesn't actually involve Shakespeare's comedies, but I find comedic, and I'm sure many of the citizens of England during the Tudor era also found comedic, was in Shakespeare's play Macbeth, where the idea of it, sort of if you step back a couple of layers, is that Shakespeare is Scottish and he becomes King of England. He and his wife plot their way and they scheme their way and they murder their way into being King of England, and then he dies. And the commentary in that play was Shakespeare's opinions of Mary, Queen of Scots, and then James the First and Sixth of Scotland, where he felt there was a Scottish ruler on the English throne, or trying to vie for the English throne after Elizabeth I. She didn't have any kids, and therefore Scottish rulers came in. I find that Shakespeare being petty and having political commentary in his play, I find that comedic, and I'm sure others probably did as well. Maybe they agreed with him, maybe they didn't agree with him. Honestly, kind of like a modern day SNL when you think about it, comparing the political commentary of Macbeth to the SNL presidential debates at this current moment. That literally just came to me. Otherwise, it would have been articulated in a much smoother way.
Look at him go. That's the bard right there, guys.
This week we actually journeyed to Stratford-upon-Avon. Here we are at Shakespeare's birthplace, which was the cottage in which he grew up in and lived in for the majority of his life. This is the inside of the cottage, where I actually wasn't supposed to film, but I didn't see the sign till later. This is Anne Hathaway's cottage, who is Shakespeare's wife. This is the inside of her cottage where I was allowed to film, so that's why I've got a little bit more here. The gardens outside were really pretty. There's an apple orchard on the property. And I was having a grand old time, as you can see here.
Guys, is this where William Shakespeare rizzed up Anne Hathaway? We're making a sonnet!
No, I can't even do it. He was 10 years older. He was 10 years younger than her. I can't even imagine him raising up a 26-year-old woman.
This 18-year-old boy like waddles up.
This 18-year-old boy like walked up to this house and was like, I'm here to get married to you, 26-year-old Anne Hathaway, because you're pregnant with my child. Like, what kind of, okay.
Wild, absolutely wild.
What kind of?
Shakespeare be out here.
Shakespeare's riz must have been insane.
Wait, so when do we get to meet the actress from The Princess Diaries? We went to Shakespeare's birthplace, and then we also saw his resting place in this church. It was very beautiful.
We had a two-storey charnel house where all the bones and the skulls were put. And when it was full, we'd have a bonfire as we know it today. Yeah,
I did not know that.
Of the bone.
So I think this room was built for me. We've got a little, one of the arrow slots. You have a soldier stationed in this teeny tiny room. Like, teeny tiny. And he'd have his little bow and arrow. And he would just shoot out at the, I don't know if you're gonna be able to see, I don't know if it'll focus, but shoot out at oncoming enemies. But yeah, and then if you leave here, teeny tiny threshold, oh, you step down. You've got a slightly bigger chamber, a pointed roof. But yeah, that's where we just were. In that, oh. Eat it up. Get into it. Oh my gosh, I went into the nest.
I hated that. I hated that a lot.
Secret tunnel. Secret tunnel. To the pigeons. Secret, secret, secret tunnel. Hi. Sorry to disturb your vlogging experience, but I'm coming from you from the studio in question. I'm editing this vlog right now, and my plan was to finish the week in this vlog, but it's already very long, so I think I'm just gonna end this with the Shakespeare content, and then the next vlog will start with sort of the end of that week. I also have a lot of content from this week, so I will be making a blooper video at some point. Last thing I will leave you with, since I don't have any video commentary on it, but we saw Love's Labour's Lost with Luke Thompson, who is an actor from Bridgerton. He plays Benedict Bridgerton, who's the second oldest brother. I loved it. Everything was fantastic. I was fangirling absolutely so hard. I stage doored. That's the first clip in this vlog, is me holding the program with his signature on it. So that's the end of the vlog. I hope everyone had a good old time. I worked very hard on it.
That was so